Hey guys, if you're enjoying the content that I've been putting up, be sure to show your support by subscribing to the channel. Now that we got that part out of the way, let's get into the video. Final Fantasy XIV is a massive game with thousands of hours of content. What I'm going to do here is break down some of the major plot points for those of you who want to know more about Eorzea, but may not have time to experience it all firsthand. This time we're covering the story of the Bozjan resistance and the Blades of Gunnhildr. Back in Kugane, after your adventure with Makoto and the Garleans at the Orban Monastery, a story that I've covered in depth on this channel and will leave a link to in the description for those of you who haven't seen it yet, you run into a man named Keaton, who was about to send a letter to the Rising Stones for you. Hancock has something important that he wants to talk to you about, and since he has worked with you before, you go to hear him out. Hancock has gotten a message from Lord Hien of Doma that the Bozjan resistance is looking for people to help them fight the Empire. Of course, your name came up. They are a small nation to the west of Dalmasca and were one of the first ones to fall to the Empire. But with the Empire dealing with unrest in its borders, the Bozjans are fighting back. If you want to know more, he thinks it best that you talk to Hien. You find him and Yugiri standing outside of the ruins of Doma Castle, the site of the battle where you pushed the Garleans out of Doma. He's joined by a Hrothgar named Marsek of the Bozjan resistance. While his people are trying to reclaim their land, Hien has heard that the 4th Legion has been making plans of its own. The Legion holds the lands of Naggia, Bozja, and Dalmasca in an iron grip while using Dalmasca as their base of operations, but recently they've been shifting the bulk of their forces to Bozja. The plan was to attack them before they could assemble their forces, but the resistance doesn't have the manpower for that. The Dalmascans still haven't stopped fighting amongst themselves, so they can't help. However, Hien has an idea. The Domans had needed someone or something that they could rally behind to help them form an organized rebellion. The Bozjans are much the same. But since they don't have any living monarchs, Marsek and his allies decided that the ancient weapons of the past, Gunnhildr's blades, would help boost the morale of the people. They were the weapons used by the members of Queen Gunnhildr's elite guard, who had the same name as their weapons. They were said to be blessed by the gods, and their wielders became legends during the time fighting the Allagans in the Third Astral Era. They were the most dedicated soldiers, and if one of them died, their weapon would be passed down to the next in line, who would fight just as fiercely as his predecessor. The Gunblade became the most famous of these weapons, but it wasn't the only one, just the coolest. Marsek wants these ancient weapons reforged. With an army armed with them, the people would feel they're blessed by the gods and will fight harder to drive the Legion out. 90% of fighting is mental, so he's not wrong. It could work. The task won't be easy, which is why Marsek has been recruiting the best and brightest, and he'd love for you to join. Of course you agree to do it, and you hitch a ride to the base of the Bozjan resistance in a place called Gongos. When you arrive, Marsek introduces you to Bozjan, the leader of the resistance, and after introductions you see your old friend Geralt, the weaponsmith. With the two of you working together, restoring the ancient weapons seems a lot more plausible, although Geralt is just working there to pay off his debt to Rowena. Since she's been supplying the resistance and they needed a smith, she kind of forced him into the role. With all that done, Masija, another of the high-ranking resistance members, gives you the rundown of the plan. Reforging the weapons will be a bit more complicated than just grabbing the materials and bringing them to Geralt. Almost all information about the weapons and their wielders was lost during the 4th Umbral Calamity. They have been gathering bits of information and making progress, but they don't know what made the weapons so powerful. The stories say that the Queen put holy markings on each weapon that gave them power, but there are no records of the marks. However, there were replicas of the blades complete with the markings. The only problem is they were destroyed in Bozja's citadel. 15 years ago, the Garleans were trying to connect to the moon Dalamud. They thought it could be a source of incredible power, and they built a lunar transmitter to harness it. However, when they turned it on, it fired back with raw energy, destroying the citadel and everything and everyone around it. Still, there is a way to find the inscriptions. However, that explanation is a bit more complicated and better left to someone smarter, which is why they brought in your good friend Makoto. Her mastery of etherology is something that the Resistance knew they'd need to complete their mission, so the Eorzean Alliance sent over one of the smartest members of the students of Baldesion. She thought that with her knowledge and Geralt's skill, they could complete the task, but she hadn't been able to do what some of the ancient inhabitants of Gongos had done in the past. They were able to use special crystals to manipulate people's memories, adding new ones, removing old ones, and the like. The story seemed ridiculous until the Resistance found the crystals that had been used in the practice. When they couldn't figure out how to use them, that was when they had sought help from Makoto. Makoto starts to explain what she's discovered about the crystals, but once again she dives into smart people speak and has to dumb it down for all of you. The long and short of it is that people are made up of 3 different types of ether: physical, the ether of the soul, and the ether of the mind. It takes all 3 types of ether to make a person. If they didn't have the physical ether, they would be ghosts. Without the mental ether, they would be zombies, but they would still have some memories left behind by their mental ether. The crystals can resonate with people's memories, letting you see their memories and interact with them. However, there are 2 types of memories. Explicit memories are things that you actively remember, while implicit memories are stored deep within you and are things that you might not even know that you know. Like if you ever smelt something that seemed familiar but you can't remember exactly where you knew it from, that's an implicit memory. While the explanation isn't all that difficult to understand, a demonstration would be easier. And while you don't have one of the ancient seers on hand, your gift from the Echo to see into people's past is pretty much the same thing. At least Makoto thinks so. While she does have the Echo, her gift isn't the same as yours, so she couldn't use the crystals. She decides to test it out, and Geralt is going to be a guinea pig. Although he's not the most cooperative of test subjects, you manage to use the crystal and enter his mind, and you even manage to draw Makoto into Geralt's memory of his time with Rowena. Turns out the 2 of them were very close, although Geralt swears that the memory isn't the same as what really happened. Makoto even has an answer for this. Woman has an answer for everything. Implicit memories sometimes alter themselves just in case the memory is unpleasant and would hurt the owner. But with a little prodding, you can discover the truth. Now, knowing that the technique will work, all you have to do is find someone who has actually seen the replicas of the weapons you want to recreate. The only problem is that anyone who may have seen the weapons died when the Citadel was destroyed, and if anyone did survive, they would be Garlean soldiers and probably not willing to help. The Echo suddenly takes over Makoto, and the 2 of you are hit with a vision of you and Makoto standing around Sid as you dive into his memories. Unlike your gift, Makoto's Echo lets you see the future. The presence of the Seer Crystal let you see her vision as well. Marsak and the other Bozjans know Sid's name well since he's the son of the man who led the meteor project that destroyed their home, although they didn't know that he led the Garland Ironworks. While they don't like Sid since his father Midas ran the project in Bozja, it may have been possible that he saw the replicas, meaning the Bozjans have to place their hope in not only a Garlean, but the son of the man who ruined them. Some members of the Ironworks are in Rogger's Reach, so you head there to track down Sid. You find Lelicia, the newest member of the Ironworks who talks entirely too much, and Jesse, who after you tell her what's going on, gives Sid a call. He agrees to meet you at the Doman Enclave as soon as possible. Before you head off to meet him, Jesse lets you know that the Bozja incident is something really hard for Sid to talk about. He had tried to stop his father, but he had failed, and to this day he blames himself. Diving into his mind and seeing that event from Sid's point of view may not be pleasant for any of you, so Jesse wants you to be careful. You meet up with Sid at the Enclave, and he doesn't even hesitate before offering to grant his assistance to the Bozjans. He's even spoken to Hien about aiding in Doma's reconstruction, mainly because he wants to do all he can to undo the damage done by the Empire since he did help make the weapons that they've used to conquer nations. As for Bozja, with them facing the 4th Legion, Sid knows they're going to need all the help they can get because the Legion is made up of some incredible warriors. When you reach Gongos, Makoto gives Sid a rundown of what he will need to do and how the deep dive into his memories will work. All he has to do is think back on his time at the Citadel, and you and Makoto will do the rest. With Crystal in hand, you, Makoto, and Sid dive into the Garlean's memory of the Citadel before it was destroyed. However, unlike your trip into Geralt's memories, things are distorted and unstable in the mind of Sid, mainly due to the fact that he spent so long trying to block out those thoughts that his subconscious tries to prevent you from accessing the memory. Roads are shattered that should be whole, forcing you to find ways to jog Sid's memory so he can remember the place as it truly was. The further you go, Sid's subconscious creates monsters to force you out of his mind. As you face them, stronger and stronger creatures appear, until Sid's mind pulls out all of the stops and summons a version of Bahamut himself to deal with you. I can understand repressing bad memories, but this is a bit ridiculous. Beating the Primal helps clear Sid's mind a bit, and you come across the moment where a young Sid tried to convince his father that the Meteor Project was riskier than they thought. The moon Dalamud had the power to store solar power, and if it released all that it had been storing for generations, then there was no way the tower at the Citadel could contain it all. His father wouldn't listen. He wouldn't even look at the research that Cid brought to him, which was out of character for the man. Makoto thinks she knows why, but now isn't the time to say it since you have other things to do. At the heart of the facility, you do find the replicas of Gunnhildr's blades, complete with their inscriptions. However, there's a lot wrong with Cid's memory here. For starters, he sees an image of himself arguing with Emperor Solus, who he knew wasn't there. The image changes to Varys, Zenos' father, and the man shoots Cid. Cid gets pulled so deep into the memory that he starts to die from the wound of his past, but Makoto reminds him that he's not a part of the memory, and he snaps out of it. However, Varys wasn't truly there either, and is in fact nothing more than the deepest barrier of Cid's subconscious blocking his path to the most painful memory of his past. Varys goes to expel you from Cid's mind, but with the power of the Echo, you conjure versions of the Scions of the Seventh Dawn to help you take down Varys. Now, finally getting to see Zenos' father in action, I understand fully why the man didn't try to fight his dad straight up. With the aid of your friends, you bring down Varys, allowing Cid to finally see his true memories from that day. The reason his mind had fought so hard to keep the truth from him was because it wasn't Varys who had shot him, but his own father. However, it wasn't of his own will. Metis Garland had already been tempered by Bahamut when his experiments had activated the moon and woke the dragon, which is why he acted so out of character and the entire reason for the destruction of the Citadel. Neither Cid nor his father was to blame. It had all been orchestrated by Bahamut. With the truth known, you all leave Cid's memories to let the Bozjans know that you found what you needed. With the inscriptions, Geralt won't take any time to recreate the weapons, and knowing that the Empire and Cid's father weren't to blame for the destruction of Bozja puts Bozjan at ease. And he apologizes to Cid for judging him so harshly, despite all he's done to help the victims of the Empire. Surprisingly, the trip into Cid's mind burnt up all the ether stores left in the crystal, and even though Makoto thinks she can figure out how to restore it, that'll be the last trip down memory lane for a while. With that done, Cid leaves to take care of his own work, but in a bold move, Makoto, in the most obvious way ever, shoots her shot at Cid, who completely misses what she meant. And some of the smartest people can be so dumb sometimes. In any case, it's time. Geralt has gotten started on the weapons, and Marsak and the others are preparing to attack the Legion. Meanwhile, in Dalmasca, the 4th Legion spies already know about the Resistance working on reforging Gunnhildr's blades, but they aren't worried. They have something special planned for not only the Bozjans, but the main force of the Garlean Empire as well. And what they intend to use to wipe them both out is a primal, known as the Lady of Blades. This concludes the first part of the Save the Queen storyline. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on the next video.